All right, this is John Roy with By Fire and Faith podcast. And here at Dawson Knives, we make knives and swords for the glory of God. Over 3 generations, and our work has been a ministry guided by the words for Him and for them. So the Fire by Faith podcast continues its mission with a testimony from believers, and they walk us through their trials and how God has used those moments to bring them closer to Him. And so one of the people that we have on today is my very good friend for many, many years, Jason Laird. Jason, I'm so glad to have you here. How you doing, buddy?
Thanks for having me on.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, my friend.
Oh boy, how deep do we want to go on this? Already. A little bit about myself. Currently I work for the government, and I'm in St. Louis. It's been an interesting change. I've been across the country to different places, lived in many different states, and now I'm here. My faith has grown substantially since I've moved here to St. Louis. I became I would say a born-again Christian back in around 2016 or so time frame, and it's been a whirlwind of activity since then.
So tell me, brother. I've known you for many, many years, but tell me a little bit about what it was like growing up. Tell us a little bit about your youth and
Sure.
and how that all progressed.
Okay, so we do want to go a little deeper here.
Yeah.
Okay, so I grew up, well, let's just say I was born in South Carolina. I was adopted from the hospital in Charleston and moved to Florence for a while in my younger years, and then moved to Indiana when I was 5 or 6. And
Oh, wow.
yeah, from there, I was living there, going to school, whatnot, and it was about the age of 12 or 13 where I was introduced to Catholicism. I became a Catholic
Okay.
at that point in time. My parents wanted to do something different with me, bring me into some kind of faith, even though
Yeah.
I do have distinct memories of being out on the baseball field, for instance, when I was playing Little League and T-ball and whatnot. Speaking to God, it was a conversation that we had. I had to remember doing this, and it was quite unique, the conversations that we had. And then later on, when
Like how old were you?
I was probably 8, 9 years old or so.
So you're pretty young, man.
Yeah, I was pretty young. And it was a good time. I was introduced to the Catholic faith again at 12 or 13 years old. And that was the first time I've ever heard the term Jesus spoken. And that was an interesting concept to me at the time. And then having to learn the Catholic way of life and living at that point in time. I struggled at that point in time as well with family issues, just due to the fact that I was adopted, and then I had gone through a divorce. So I struggled for a little while, quite a few years with all that. I was never abused or anything like that, but I had my own issues and struggles at that point in time. Grew in faith a little bit with the Catholic Church, got to understand the ideologies and the theologies associated with Christianity and with the Catholic faith.
But it wasn't like a personal relationship. It was just kind of like going through the motions, just understanding things.
It's interesting that you say that. Yes, I would say that I did not have a relationship. It seemed like I had a relationship prior to, and then I didn't really have a relationship with God after that. It was more religiosity, more of the things that you have to do through the Catholic faith.
So like why do you think that is? Like why younger before you even knew who God was that you had a relationship, and then like you're going into Catholicism and now it's like no relationship. So what do you think caused that?
I'm not sure. I think there was a lot of um, legalism or whatnot
Yeah.
that I wasn't prepared for, and then now I have to do these certain things, and it kind of took away that personal relationship that I had with Jesus and with God at that point in time. So I would say that it was there's a lot of legal stuff that I was trying to wrap my brain around and understand in ways that I just didn't know at that point in time and was trying to learn. And that took all my time and effort away from knowing who God was at that point.
Yeah, so what did you do? Like you're learning about God, and what did you do in your life when you could get out of the house, basically? So what did you decide to do with your life at that moment?
Yeah, so that's interesting. I was I'll be honest, I was in trouble with the state at that point in time, with Indiana. I had a few speeding tickets and some other things that were on record. Yeah, kind of going down the wrong path, and some of the friends that I had at that point in time weren't necessarily good friends. I would say they were good friends for me at the point in time, but they weren't
Yeah.
very, very, very good as far as getting life straight. So yeah, it was very interesting. But yeah, so soon as I could, I had two jobs at that point in time. I was working at Sears and then some other job that I don't really remember too much. It was a boxing company and whatnot. So I had decided at some point in time during a lunch break between the two jobs to go check out the military. And so my dad had been through the military, and so had my priest and a neighborhood friend, a friend of my father's, and a close friend to me as well, that had been through the Navy. And so I
Ah.
decided that I needed to get my life together. I needed to check this out. And at that point in time, I wasn't sure exactly. I was interested in electronics, and that's what I was hoping to get was electronics. However, when I went to talk to the people at the Navy recruiter's office, they said you would have to go in for an extended period of time. You'd have to wait an extended period of time. I think it was somewhere around 9 months or something to
Oh
become,
wow.
yeah, to become an ET. It was what they call it, an electrician tech.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know about that. And they had a sign on the window, I think, that said Navy SEALs. That looks like fun. Come to find out that, when I did some research on that, the life expectancy at that point in time wasn't very good. And I wasn't sure if that was the route that I wanted to take, but I needed to get in immediately or as soon as possible, I felt. And we had talked. I went down and took the test that they require over at the MEP station in Indianapolis that weekend. And they offered me a few different schools. A lot of them, again, like I said, were waiting for they had waiting lists for up to 9 to 12 months or so, and
Oh
I
wow.
needed to get in soon. So I took the gunner's mate, and I became a gunner's mate, and they shipped me off
What
in, I think it was two
was that
weeks.
because it was like just, hey, we'll take you in if you want to be a gunner's mate?
They offered, yeah, they offered. They said the closest thing to electronics school, because they offered electronics school through the gunner's mate classes, and I mean it's
Ah.
very very general electronics information and learning and whatnot. There's a lot of other things too besides electronics. There's hydraulics and pneumatics and all sorts of various things, fire suppression systems and whatnot. But that's the route that I decided to take, and yeah, it worked out that after I had joined and again left 2 weeks after I had taken the test and gotten my class date and everything like that, the state of Indiana decided to come and try to take my license away from me, and
Oh.
my parents had to show some kind of paperwork, and I just found this out maybe a few years back. Some kind of
Oh, wow.
paperwork, yeah, that I was actually in, and they dropped everything that was coming my way, and I guess figuring perhaps I was getting my life in order and whatnot. So, yeah,
So I mean, that's really interesting because you had this like sense and pressure. You're like, no, I can't wait 9 months. I got to get in. I mean, why did you have that? I mean, we could see the aftermath, but what was going on in your mind just before that?
I honestly I don't know. I think that there wasn't a whole lot of pressure. I don't think I was feeling much pressure from the state or anything like that at that point in time.
No, but just like internal.
Yeah, I just wanted to do something different with my life. I
Yeah.
wasn't going anywhere in particular. And I needed something different, something new. And this was something very new and somewhat scary.
Right.
Going to a place, basically going to Chicago with a whole bunch of people initially for boot camp and hearing all the crazy stories about boot camp. It kind of turned my stomach a little bit, but I was willing to take the chance and everything. So internally, I think I wasn't really focused on anything in particular. I just needed a change in direction in my life.
And, I think it's just really cool how God got you out of that scenario with the state beforehand, but you just found out like 3 years ago
Yeah.
that your parents had to show something. But so you go in, you're in the Navy. What is life like, and is there a growth in your relationship, or you're just figuring out what you want to do at this time?
No, that's interesting. I fell away from church. I fell away from,
Oh,
I was what, 18 years old, heading into 19 years old. And I had gone through boot camp and I had gone to the Sunday services still that they allowed in boot camp, but I could feel that I was falling away and I
yeah.
wanted to do things kind of on my own, experience life on my own. And so when I joined, it wasn't long before I had fallen out of the church. It kind of stayed in the back of my mind, but other things were happening and I wanted to be a part of all of it. I had new friends. I could make, and this became an issue. I could make whatever I wanted of myself and kind of portray it to other people, even though a lot of it wasn't true. And so that's what I did for a long time is I falsified myself and started doing my own thing and really went off the rails. I was in Chicago for boot camp for a few months, and then I got stationed there in Chicago. That was where the A school was for gunner's mate. So I was there, and those who know, it was back then. It was the green glass building that I was in Chicago, and yeah. So I went through A school there, and that was like a 9-month deal. So that was about a whole year that I stayed in Chicago. Again, kind of dropped out of faith completely by that point in time. And then I got my orders and I went to Guam. I got stationed in Guam. It was
Wow.
initially a 2-year tour that became a 3-year tour because I was getting out and whatnot. But that's when a lot of crazy things happened in my life. So I'm sure you want to hear about those too, huh?
Well, I mean, if you want to share it, brother, I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
I want to hear the fall. When I was young, I fell away from God, and there just comes this period where you're just like, I'm the man now. I'm going to be who I want to be, and that projection. You
Hmm.
always project yourself more than what you are, and
Right.
you want people to be impressed with you, like you've already made it, even when you haven't done anything yet. And so, yeah, no, I'm curious. So what
Yeah.
happens now? You're in Guam.
Yeah.
I mean, of all
Yeah.
places, is that where you wanted to be? Did you ever see yourself, I want to go to Guam?
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, as a matter of fact, when they gave me the orders, the list, the way that the list is there was a lot of ships that were here in within the country
Yeah.
that I was interested in. I was actually wanting to be on a ship, surprisingly enough. It is the Navy, by the way. And I said, yeah, I want to be on a ship. And they gave a list of them, but all the people who were married or were in trouble in A school, which I wasn't, even though I think we were one of the worst classes that went through at that point in time. And those guys know. But yeah, there wasn't much of a choice. There was, after all those people got the billets for stateside stuff, I ended up getting a billet to Guam, and then there was 2 other Guams, and that was the choice that I was left with for the most part.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, I didn't have a choice, and as a matter of fact, I looked over at the guy next to me, and it's like, I don't even know where Guam is. Is this in the Caribbean? I don't know. Some island somewhere, and I quickly found out that it was a Pacific island. If they taught that in school, I just didn't pay attention or something. I didn't even know it was a territory of the United States.
I know it's a small island. So it's
Yeah.
not like we spent a lot of time at school. If they did, they just pointed it out because it was on that part of the world.
Yeah, it was.
But so you didn't even get a ship.
Yeah,
You
I didn't get a
got an
ship.
island.
I got shore duty, which actually turned out to be a great thing. So
Oh, wow.
I was shore duty for the 3 years, the 3 remaining years that I did. So for my 4-year term that I did in the Navy, I was 3 years in Guam, and I met some great people there. I still have friendships with several of them, and
Oh, wow.
yeah, it was a great time. Really, really thoroughly enjoyed it. And again, as far as faith at that point in time, it was really just a faint belief. Like, I had a belief in God, but that was about as far as it was going. I will say as well, though, looking back, God's hand was completely in every decision I made. And that is a beautiful thing, because the things that happened in Guam got a little crazy. So besides the obvious, okay, Navy guys, legal drinking age there is 18 years old, so we are legal to drink. I quickly found out that I'm personally not a big drinker. I handle alcohol well enough, but I just don't like the feeling of being out of control of myself. And so that wasn't a big thing for me, although I became like a designated driver for the most part for a lot of people. And that was actually great, because then I could watch these fools get drunk in front of me, and I was the one, I was the one that would help them out, which was not fun, but it was fun watching them make fun of the fools of themselves, basically. So, yeah.
That's pretty awesome. Well, I mean, that's interesting how even though that you were the furthest from God in your faith, God's hand still was moving incredibly in your life. So when you got out of the Navy, I mean, what did you decide to do? I mean, you're in the Navy 3 years, and then you get out. Like, where's your projection going, and where are you even going to begin with?
So, getting out of the Navy, I knew that it was coming up. There were some things that happened there, and I'll go back on those in just a moment. But I needed to do something. I knew I was getting out, and the choice to me at the time was college. And I said, I'm really interested in going back again, interested in electronics. So electrical engineering was kind of my focus and everything. It was something that I was still very interested in. So that's what I was kind of looking into is doing that. At that point in time, the internet still hadn't really become a big thing. So it's not like I could do a ton of research, but I knew a few schools that I was interested in. So when I decided to get out of the Navy, I considered for a few moments that I could stay on Guam, get basically the same job, the civilian equivalent to what I was doing at the time, and then just stay there, maybe go to school. They do have a college out there. But the more logical option was to come back to the United States and go to school, get my degree and whatnot. So I will say that I did go to a school. I was interested not only in electronics back when I was in high school, but I was also interested in architecture. and I had gone to Ball State University on a tour, and when I applied for Ball State in their, I think it was a 6-year program at the time for architecture, I did not get it. My grades were not very good in high school, just to say. So, and I wasn't, I was a little concerned about that going into college as well. However, I had grown up enough to where I was thinking, yeah, I could do college. This shouldn't be really too much of an issue for me. I feel like I can handle what college is going to bring. So yeah, that was kind of my path. Now, kind of going back into some of the things that happened in Guam, one of the things that really kind of changed a little bit of direction of what I was going through is I had met a girlfriend of mine at the point in time later on when I was there. I think that was in 1996, late 1996 into 1997. And she and we were never married, but we ended up having a child. And so her name is Jade, and she is now going on 28. I think that's coming up here very, very shortly, as a matter of fact. Yeah, in 2 days, I believe she turns 28. So yeah, it's
that's a huge change being a father.
Yeah. Yes, and that was one of the things that I was looking at when I was trying to decide, and one of the reasons why I was thinking about staying in Guam at that point in time. However, her mom she didn't really want a relationship with me at that point. So it would have just been me over there with my daughter. We may have tried to make things work. I mean, the past is the past. The decisions we made at that point in time, we can't go back and try to figure out what the ifs were. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely on my mind. What could I do and everything? I didn't want to be a deadbeat dad or anything like that. I just wanted to go and do the right thing as much as I could. And even going back to college, I mean, that was kind of a part of the idea was, okay, I can go back to college, make some, after I get done with college, make some money, really support my daughter and everything like that. So, yeah, that was kind of the whole plan at that point in time. Now, of course, plans are very fluid and things change in life. So, but that was a big factor in all this as life was progressing. So, the other big things concerning like spiritual growth, in the about 95 time period or so, I think it was, probably 1995 or something, I decided to go out away. At that point in time, the military would pay for you to live off base in an apartment, and they may still do that, I'm not sure, but if you were interested at that point. So I got a roommate, and we got our first apartment together off base, and that was kind of the thing to do. A lot of people were doing it at the time and everything. So that's what we decided to do, is get an apartment off base. And we moved into Spook Central. Just I don't know how else to put it, but it was the most haunted place I've ever lived.
Wow.
Yeah. And that got into some very demonic activity within our house. Yeah, it was interesting. It was the first time I was exposed to a Ouija board, and I believe that was the gateway to opening doors that
did you like bring it in to like a party trick, or was this like something that was there? Or
my roommate at the time, I think it was his, if I'm not mistaken, but it was more like, hey, yeah, let's try this out. I think we may have had some people over at one point and wanted to try it and everything, and it was silly. I thought it was silly, and at some point, the pointer, if you've ever seen one, it has like a little triangle pointer. It goes over the letters and spells things out. And I wasn't pushing it. I know I wasn't pushing it. And I looked at my roommate, and he swears up and down that he wasn't pushing it either. And it wasn't long after that that certain things around the apartment started to do just supernatural things. It got to the point where it was not an uncommon occurrence that the lights would go on and off by themselves. At one point in time, I remember coming into the apartment, throwing my keys down. I was going to watch a little bit of television. Turned on the television, and it turned off by itself. And I thought that was weird. And when I got up to get the remote, it turned back on. And that was kind of the start of a lot more activity. Eventually, it got to the point where cabinet doors were opening and closing, slamming, and whatnot. Water faucets were turning on and off by themselves. It was always super cold in that apartment. We had complaints from neighbors of ours when we weren't even there. We were out, that we were throwing big parties. My stereo was always changed, like certain things had changed. And initially I thought my roommate had been messing with it, and he claims that he never did. And it made sense that something else was going on, and something very supernatural was happening. And that's when other things started happening, to the point where one night I was there by myself. My roommate had gone back to the States for vacation or whatnot. Mm-hmm. And I was in the room by myself, and there was a apparition. It started off as like a cloud almost. And as the cloud went past me, it went down the hallway, and as it was going down the hallway, it changed form into like a human form. And then it walked not into my roommate's bedroom, but it turned around, looked at me, and walked straight into my bedroom. And I was terrified. As a matter of fact, I still have goosebumps on me right now from just recounting the story. It was absolutely horrifying. And I didn't know what to do. I wasn't panicking or anything at that point, but
So what did you think this was, honestly?
I knew it was something not good. And I got up from where I was sitting on the couch, and I left, and I went up to a friend of mine's apartment, and I said, I hope you have a place to stay for me, because I'm not going back to my apartment. He didn't believe me. He walked down with me, and we walked into the apartment, and we looked around. Of course, there's nothing that's going to indicate that there was anything there, but I was surely terrified. There was something there. I had people who actually stayed in that apartment with us, like overnight, and they have recounted similar occurrences and said that they would never stay there again. So it was definitely very, very haunted. Strobe lights in the room when we weren't there, like clearly lights were going on and off and whatnot, but wasn't us. We weren't there. No one had, other than the management, had the keys, but they weren't there at those times a night when we were out and about. So it became a very, very scary thing. The things that happened there followed me for many years to come. So, wow. Yeah, and we can get into that as we progress down the road.
When you are going through that, and you're seeing these things that are unnatural, and they were mm-hmm. never there before, so they just came after that experience of the Ouija board.
Yeah.
What are you thinking? I mean, because you sound like a researcher. You sound like a guy that's like, this is going on. Why is this going on? And how do I get this to stop?
Yeah. The most interesting part about it was it didn't do it as much when I was there. It still did it enough, but it was my roommate that affected more. For whatever reason, it was drawn to him more, but it still affected me quite a bit. I don't know what it was. I had doubts, but my eyes were clearly seeing, and I could hear, thumps on a concrete wall that were right there. There were things there that were happening, and you just can't explain it. There was no explanation. And again, at that point in time, there was no internet as we know it today. So it's
Yeah.
not like you could go researching for this stuff. I guess the closest thing would have been a library, go down to the library, grab a few books or whatnot. But
Yeah.
I didn't do that. I just was experiencing this and didn't know what it was, thinking that there were some interesting things going on. Of course, the Ouija board was trying to give us information. This was a place that in World War II had seen a lot of action from the Japanese and whatnot. So there was a Japanese, I won't say it was a Japanese, but there was a cemetery that was on the other side of the road from these apartments. And the claims from the Ouija board were that there were ghosts from that area. Now, looking back, I'd say demonic activity would dictate what happened. But at that point in time, they said, yeah, it was a ghost from across the road. And I mean, that was the only thing I could think of that was showing up. And that's what I kind of believed. I didn't ask God. I wasn't into prayers or anything like that. So I didn't have any other information other than what I was witnessing for myself and through other people that were witnessing the same thing.
So this was like your only spiritual connection now is the Ouija board and what it's telling you. So I find this really interesting because, you're in the military and you're having these really big life changes. I mean, being a dad, that's a huge one.
Yes.
So now you're caring for somebody else. Regardless if she wants to be in the relationship anymore, you still have a daughter that still needs you. And so that's a big change. That usually changes a guy's perspective. Like now he's not just thinking of himself, he's thinking of, my daughter and what more does life have to offer. But at the same time, you're also being introduced to this Ouija board. And you have these demonic spirits, but at the time, I would have been in the same place. I would have been like ghosts because that's, everyone thought it was ghost. And that's the only spiritual connection of where you're getting answers from in that sense, because you're asking about the places and what's going on. So these are a lot of changes going on in your life.
Yes.
That is culminating from your experience here.
Yep. Yeah. The only answers I was getting was from the Ouija board, which was demonic activity that was giving me the answers that weren't true.
So when you left, did you take the Ouija board with you, or did that stay with your friend?
As a matter of fact, I ended up in another apartment with another friend of mine. We got a different apartment somewhere else, and I spent the last year of my time on Guam in that apartment and separate. Not much activity at that point in time. We were pretty busy all the time with just doing our own things. Riding motorcycles was a hobby of ours. We were always out and about doing things, going to the beach. Just different things that we had to do. So and we really didn't spend a whole lot of time there that I recall. So the activity wasn't as much in that location as it was in the previous location. And so I wasn't really concerned about it at that point in time. Again, I was more interested in what I could do for myself and again, kind of trying to figure out what was happening with my relationship with my girlfriend at the time. And she was there. What was interesting is to be honest, we weren't really interested in having a big relationship anyways. It was more supposed to be just a, hey, what's up, and a little fling that we had between us. At that point in time, though, I found out that my parents, so going back just a little bit, my parents who adopted me, they got divorced when I was 2. And so I had two sets of families, and I was kind of constantly going back and forth between the two.
That's hard.
Yeah. So my dad, who I claim as the one who raised me, he was with my mom, and then I had my dad who adopted me, and I'm grateful that he stayed in my life all those years and continues to be a huge, huge role model for me, even today. My dad, who had raised me, he and my mom were getting divorced when I was still in Guam, and that relationship that I had with my girlfriend at the time, I was I was clinging. I started to cling to her as a support method, going through it, and I didn't know it at the time. I was trying to process all the information and whatnot, but yeah, that's kind of what happened and how things kind of progressed to where we ended up with a child and everything else. Um, and yeah, so when I got back from the Navy, I came back to a broken home again, and I felt a little bit betrayed, almost in a way. Um, and I was going to move in with my mom, who had moved to Arizona at the point in time. She had moved to Sedona, and my dad was in Indiana, and I couldn't go back. I could not get myself back to Fort Wayne, where I had grown up for the most part. I just could not bring myself to go back there. Even to this day, I don't want to go back. There's too many memories, and then I just don't want to recount. And so,
Right.
and a lot of people, I mean, besides the obvious, that they weren't there. I was, a Gen X kid growing up, and us Gen Xers, we were latchkey kids. We didn't have anybody to account for us. My parents were gone from the time I woke up. I went to school by myself, got home. They weren't back until like 6 p.m. Saw them for maybe 2 hours a night, and everything else was on my own. So that's the way it kind of felt. Now, I mean, that was my perception of it. Weekends, obviously, they were there, but yeah. So anyway, they got divorced when I got out of the military, or prior to me getting out. And so I came back to a broken home, and I decided to move in with my dad, who adopted me, and my stepmom. And that was a whole different situation, because I have a brother and a sister through them. So they're my stepbrother and sister, and they're wonderful. I love them to death. And
were they in Indiana also? Or?
yeah, they were
Okay.
near Indianapolis, and
Okay.
so I was there, maybe once a month. I can't remember the time periods that I would get picked up and go down and see my dad down there, and then head back to Fort Wayne. Many miles between the two, 2-hour drive each way, and I did that my whole childhood, going back and forth. But I had a chance and opportunity to know my brother, my sister, and my family. They are truly my family as well. So I decided to move in with them. Now, I had not lived with them per se in any big capacity, so this was kind of a change for me. I didn't have my own room. I kind of slept in the guest room, as it were. So it was interesting in a lot of ways, being that I had a different family that I knew and I was very comfortable with, but I hadn't been there growing up with them on a daily basis.
Yeah, you're an adult now, basically.
Yeah, and then there was that, and I'm 6 years older than my brother and 10 years older than my sister, and so I'm an adult. I've been through the military, and I have a broken home that I'm trying to deal with, a child that now is in Guam, 8,000 miles away from me, and I'm like, what am I doing? I'm back to square one as well, because I'm living with my parents, and parents that, again, I didn't know a whole lot about on a daily basis, and I was very depressed. And then they recount it. I believe everybody recounts it. Everybody knew I was highly, highly depressed at that point in time, and so I was sleeping in all hours of the day and up at nighttime, and the internet had kind of come out, and we had access back then, and I started doing just some surfing on the internet, and nothing in particular because there wasn't much out there per se, but it was unique enough. It was kind of taking my mind off of the reality of life at that point in time, to eventually where, even though I was living there, I was actually going up and seeing my dad in Fort Wayne a couple times, and my mom in Arizona. I think I flew out a few times to see her. Well, it just so happened during that point in time. This was 98, early 98, and I was helping them move back and forth, my mom back and forth, because she was still trying to figure out, does she want to be with my dad or this other man? Because she was interested in this other person at the time, and I believe you remember him.
Yeah.
And so he ended up, eventually becoming kind of like a stepfather, and a father figure for me later on. But
he's a nice guy.
yeah, he was a great guy.
Yeah.
But at this point in time, she couldn't decide, and so I was actually helping her move back and forth across the country, literally picking up all her stuff, putting it into a moving van, moving one way across the country, and then a few weeks or months later, we moved back across again. And we did that maybe 3 or 4 times. I don't recall.
I mean, what does that do to your psyche?
I know.
For.
And so at some point, I ended up getting a temporary job while I was going to these different schools. Now, this is just me being stubborn. I had gone to Purdue University to look at their engineering school. I was interested in that one. And then I was notified by my mom that there was a school in Arizona that has this. It was a private school. It's called Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. And I said, okay, that's interesting. I might be interested in checking it out. And I came out there at one point in time and looked at the school, and they offered me something that was unique. They said, you could be a pilot. And I thought, well, that's an interesting career choice, which, and I'll get into this in a little bit, but there was something there that ended up not working out very well, but we'll just leave that.
I can see God's hand in this. This is before 2001.
Yeah, it's crazy how God has just orchestrated this thing, making a straight stick or a crooked stick straight. It's very interesting. So I had checked it out, and one of the reasons why I chose Embry-Riddle over Purdue is Purdue wanted me to take a test, the SATs. And I understand tests, but this was me being me. For those who know me, I said, I don't do standardized tests. I have money, and if you want my money, I'll pay to go to the school, and you can either accept that or don't. And Embry-Riddle didn't care if I had SATs. And so I was like, that's a good choice. And they have aviation. So that's what I'm going to do. And so I decided to do that. And then prior to getting that, I ended up just getting a temporary job working at a warehouse in Indianapolis while I was waiting for that time period to come. So, and I think I worked there for maybe about a month and a half. Still a little depressed, with everything that was going on. Again, not focused on God at all at this point in time. But it was kind of a crazy, hectic time. Again, coming out of the military and that transition, waiting between when I got out in late 97 in December, to I think it's August when I went to Embry-Riddle. So.
Hey. And that's a big change. I mean, you're talking about all these big changes just coming up. I mean, you got big changes going on in Guam, in the military, coming out of the military, broken home, big changes finding your life, and then moving to Arizona. I mean, literally moving across the country from north to south.
Yep.
And, from Indiana where it's cold, that was the first time I've ever seen those driveway markers for snow.
Yes.
And and then going to Arizona desert. So
Yep.
so
Yep.
that's a big change. So when you're in Arizona, are you seeing this like a new beginning? Are you seeing this as something totally different? Like I'm going to recreate
Yes.
myself or yeah.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I still had this mentality. I was in the military. I had been prior military, um, and yeah, this is a big change. This is something new. I need to figure out, but it's going to give me something in a couple years that's going to be indispensable, and that's my
Right.
degree. So I was excited about the opportunity to do all this. And it's a whole different change. Of course, you're going to be scared to do a lot of this stuff. But at this point in time, after being in the military, I was ready to jump on any bandwagon. You tell me, it was kind of like an introvert prior to the military, and then I became an extrovert while I was in the military, and I held on to that. And I was like, yeah, I was adventurous. You want to do something, let's go. And that's what it was. And but it was kind of odd going to, especially Prescott, Arizona, because when I went there, I was looking at this place. I was like, it's like a one horse town. There's nothing here. There's no trees. There's nothing here. And I'm looking around like, this is depressing almost, and in a way. I hadn't been to the Southwest before. And so it was unique to see all the different things, but again, a small town as well. I didn't know what I was going to do. I was used to a lot of activity and keeping myself busy. And this was not that. Although, with the people that I was in school with, it became that. I mean, it's all what you make it. And
Yep.
that was good. I had a lot of good roommates. Everybody who was in the dorms at that point in time, they put all of us older people, the people that had done things prior, older than 21, onto one single floor in the dorms in one dorm, and we were all together, and that was great. I mean, I met a lot of great people there. Still have friends again that are fly for the airlines now, and all sorts of various things. And I met them while I was there at Embry-Riddle, and we had a great time. Even though it was a small place, it was a great time. And I will say, it still was on the back of my mind. I have a child, and I'm probably one of the few. And looking back, I think I was the only one, maybe up there, who was in that older group that had a child. Although there may have been one other, but as far as I was aware, I believe I was the only one that had a child. And so there were certain decisions that were being made. I remember one time I went out with a couple friends of mine and roommates. It's like a quad, One room was where everybody got together, and then there was three other rooms that we were all kind of tied together, two per room, so there were six of us. And then we had that little common area. There was, I think, a few of us that were out together, and one of the guys decided to start a fight with some wrestlers in a parking lot there in Safeway, and they wanted me to. I felt like I had a responsibility to back my friend who actually started the fight, and I was like. I struggled. I struggled. My friend, one of my closest friends at that point in time, he came up. We just went inside the grocery store because it was in front of a grocery store, and we went inside the grocery store together. And I said, I can't do this. I was like, I have a child that I have to do something good for my life. I can't get involved with this petty stuff anymore. And I felt bad, because I should have been there for him too, but.
But he's making stupid choices, man.
Yeah,
Sorry, it's stupid choices.
It's choices that I wouldn't have made myself. And God bless him for being who he was. He's a great guy, great guy. But I just didn't want to get involved. And when he approached me that evening, I basically was in tears because I wanted to be there for him, but
Um,
yet then again, because that's who I was at one point. Hey, you want to start some ruckus? I'm in. Let's
uh,
do this. Let's throw down. But um, I just couldn't. I didn't want that to be who I was anymore. And so I struggled with that thought for a few days afterwards as well. But it turned out to be okay. It turned out to be okay. Yeah. So I ended up going through Embry-Riddle, get my degree. I did my 4-year degree in 3 years.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you. And it was at one point though, I was in the program for flight for
Yeah.
learning to become an airline pilot. I had gone through, I'd flown planes and everything. But one of the courses that I took really changed the direction of where I was going. And the course that really did that was the crash investigation course.
Hmm.
Because this goes back to 1997. In 1997, an airplane crashed in Guam. It was a Korean Flight 801, and it was a 747 that crashed. And I ended up getting the call that morning that it crashed, and it was I don't know, 2 a.m. or something like that. I can't remember the exact time, but they were looking for my other. There was 3 guys. There were 3 of us living together at this apartment complex, and the one that they were looking for, he was like military police, but he wasn't there. And so I grabbed my other roommate at the time, and we went to check out the crash to see what was going on. Because I didn't believe it. I was like, it's 2 a.m. There's not an airline crash, that's right outside my window. Well, there was. It was a 747 that went down. And I was part of that cleanup crew. And the trauma that caused, I kind of suppressed. I must have suppressed it for long enough. And when I went through this crash investigation course in college, I felt like I couldn't fly anymore. And the terror of flying really took hold. I started to understand and really feel the weight of what happened up there. And it wasn't a good thing. And it really took effect for quite a while. As a matter of fact, I still struggle a little bit here and there. I guess they call it, the PTSD from that kind of accident that they're helping with. And so after I took that class, I got kind of terrified. It wasn't so much of me being in control of the airplane, but it was a terror of airplanes in general that wasn't rational. I understand from a logical standpoint and from the paperwork that you could show me that that's a safer way to travel. And I get that. I understand that. But trying to get me on an airplane was very difficult at that time. It's still
Well, you
still
can't
is.
unsee what you see.
Right,
You
exactly.
saw that. That's the point. Well, I know it's safer. I know it's better, but I know what it looks like when it goes wrong.
Yes. I knew what the aftermath looks like, and the families that are affected. It's terrible. And so I said, I need to look at a different direction. I still wanted to get my degree. I was still probably about a year out. I changed degrees. I ended up going from air science to an air studies, kind of more of a generalized aeronautical approach. And but I got 3 minors. One was in air science. The other one was in meteorology. And I always just found meteorology to be interesting. And the other one was safety. And so, I ended up finishing my degree with these. Now, during that time, the last year that I was there, that's when I met my wife, and that was pretty interesting meeting her, and the things that she's done in my life have changed me for the better. It's been an amazing ride with her. She's my ride or die, as some people would say. And Yeah. So I met her in 2000, and she was going to the gym. I was going to the gym with a buddy of mine. We were lifting weights all the time on our days off, in between classes and whatnot. And she just so happened to be at the gym. I saw her like once or twice, and that was it. And I was like, there's no regular schedule like that I could find that I would be able to go and see her. And but I was curious. I was curious, and I had tried to date a few other girls, and that was all on me. I messed up completely. That was me, making stuff up because I was used to making my own life up, making things up that weren't true, and those relationships obviously didn't work, and for good reason, and they shouldn't have, and I'm glad they never did. But this was different, and I was trying to I want to know who this person was. And she ended up showing up one more time to the gym. And it just so happened that I was there pretty much by myself. I think maybe the person behind the desk that, allow people into the gym. But this was on the Embry-Riddle campus. And she was there and I was there. And I realized, oh, this is the one that I'm in. I want to know what her name is. I was determined to find out her name, which was ironic because shortly after she told me her name, I promptly forgot it. I am not good with names. But yeah, so I went up there and I took a chance and I was like, I just have to know your name. I just have to know your name. And she told me her name. And again, like I said, I promptly forgot it. And as I was looking at her, I was like, my biggest concern was, I don't want to date anybody who's younger than me, really. I'm 22 maybe at the time, and 23-ish. No, maybe even 24. I think I was pushing 24 at this point in time. And I was like, I don't want like an 18-year-old freshman that's coming into college. I just, this isn't working. And she looked young enough, and I was like, so I kind of prompted with like, hey, I'm going out to this place called Prescott Live. Would you be interested in going? And at that point in time, it was a bar, brand new place that had just opened, I think, months prior to. And she's like, yeah, sure, we can go. And at that point, I realized, oh, okay, so she's older than 21. She's 21 or older, And I was like, this is a good place, Okay, I'm okay with this age, Come to find out, she had already been through Embry-Riddle, and that's why she was there at Embry-Riddle. She was using the gym as an alumni, but she was actually going for her nursing degree. She was getting finishing up her nursing degree over at Yavapai College, which is a community college there in Prescott. And so she was.
And why the sporadic schedule?
Yeah, it's exactly. And so we ended up going out that night, talking. And then from there, I think it was the following day or one of the following days, she had told me she's moving to Alaska. So by the time I met her, she was moving to Alaska in 2 weeks and not coming back.
Why?
She wanted to go get her nursing degree from Yavapai, move up to Alaska. She's been there before. She had visited, and she loves Alaska. And now I've been there as well, and I will say that it's definitely a beautiful place. I recommend anybody go up there. It's fantastic. But yeah, she was moving up to Alaska, and she told me that 2 weeks, and she wasn't really interested, I don't think at that point, maybe with getting into a relationship. It was kind of complex, I would say at that point, but it was 4 days later. And I mean, like, we had met, and on the fourth day, to me, I said, this seems right. And I told her, and we discussed it, and we
on the fourth day,
we said, this seems right. And I think we even proposed going up to Las Vegas and eloping.
Whoa.
This is like the fourth day that we've known each other. So, yeah. But it seemed right. Everything seemed like it was lining up for what felt like the right relationship. And what ended up happening is she went up to Alaska, but she said that she was just going to go up there for the summer and then come back. I decided to skip the summer school session that I was going to, the second half of that. I met her up there. I actually flew up there, and we camped out for like 2 months. I think it was 2.5 months. We lived in Alaska in a little tent, so we got to really know each other very well. And we traveled everywhere that we could in Alaska. We even got a temporary job. I'm talking like 3 weeks. Now, the reason why that happened is she found out that I had a small loan, and I say small, it was in the mid-20s, I think, as far as my loan amount for college. And I kept it low because the military was helping me pay for it and everything as well. So it wasn't like a tremendous amount that some other people have walked out of the same college with massive amounts of debt. So it wasn't that much in comparison, but it was still a debt. And she doesn't like debt. So this was kind of a red flag for her, but we talked it out and everything. And because of that whole situation anyways, we ended up getting a 2-week or 3-week job over at Subway. I was opposed to it. I wanted to go have fun. I was in Alaska. Let's go have fun, and everything.
But she's responsible.
She's the responsible one. And she decided, nope, we're going to go get a job for 3 weeks. And I was like, we're not going to make that much money off of this, but it was kind of fun working there for 3 weeks. She thought I think at one point she called me slow because I refused to work hard at Subway, and I kind of regret it because the people were great that we were there working for and everything. And when she mentioned that, I think it was the day after we went into work, and I just hammered everything out that I could as fast as I could. She's like, I don't even know.
I'll show you I'm not slow.
Exactly. I can do this. This is nothing, but I just didn't want to work. You made me work, and I'm going to prove to you I don't want to work, but we did. But it was a great time. And then we drove all the way back. She drove up with her mom all the way to Alaska, and then we drove back on the Alcan. We were in a little 2-door Saturn car, so we didn't have much room for anything. We were car camping on the way back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then we ended up getting an apartment. I finished the last portion of my school and graduated. And by that time, we were thinking about getting married, and we got married in May.
Now, was she Christian? Did you have a Christian wedding, or how did that work?
So she ended up, she grew up going to church, but not really invested. She was a believer, more so than I was at that point in time. But she was kind of into the New Age theology. At that point, I was getting really heavy into New Age theology myself. Okay. I was studying people that were doing like the New Age stuff. And I'm not going to mention any books because I don't want anybody looking these things up. But I was very heavy into New Age theology, bordering into like a witchcraft type of things and ideologies of that nature. And that's what kept a lot of things kind of still happening in the background, kind of like what I mentioned earlier. Yeah. Little things kept happening. Like I would hear voices. Things would happen on occasion where things would just be knocked off of a table, just to let me know that there was still a presence there. So I was dealing with those kinds of things still, but I was into this New Age theology, thinking, hey, this is where it's at. And but she wasn't so much into that as much. She had a belief in God, but we were kind of at that point in time just doing our own thing.
So then what
And
kind of wedding was it? Like if you're in the new age and then she, kind of God new age, like what kind of wedding does that even look like?
that's a great question. We ended up getting married in Sedona, and outside, beautiful place. The wedding was definitely not Christian. The person that was presiding for us, I believe she was into New Age theology as well, and so there were some things that we were like, this fits what we're doing right now, and yeah, very not Christian, very much not so. Yeah.
So so what began your journey back to God? I mean, you're all over here, from Guam, and then you see this whole progression with God in your life,
Yep.
and then you're a new age, and you just got married, and she's kind of new agey, and there might be more health reasons. Some people are like, I kind of like the new age for the health sides,
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
but not really like God based. So like, what
No,
started?
not at
Because
all.
Prescott is a very Christian town. Like you
Yes.
could like throw a
Yes.
rock and you'll hit like four churches as it skips along. So
Right.
so what
Right.
started that journey?
Well, so that's interesting because initially after I graduated, we went up to Page, Arizona, and I was
Okay.
rafting the river for about 2.5 years up there, and then we ended up moving to Portland, Oregon.
Ooh.
And when we were up in Portland, I was going to go back to helicopter school again, kind of against my idea of safety, which ended up not being the right choice for me. But while we were up there, um, Jody, my wife, she ended up having some health issues,
Hmm.
and she was working full time as a nurse in one of the hospitals there. Well, she was introduced to a friend of hers, a friend that she was working with. Um, Her name was Rose, and she introduced her to back to kind of Christianity and gave her a
Hmm.
Bible and really changed her heart and idea on the Christian thought, to where she was going to this church called Athey Creek, and it was fairly new at the time, and Athey Creek was, and the pastor there I actually got to meet a few times, and very interesting. I had no interest in the Christian ideology at that point in time because I was still into New Age theology and the idea that Jesus was just another great prophet, and that was about it, as far as that goes. Um, so it was difficult for me to understand what she was going through, but her conversion started, which was led down to my conversion later on. So she was going to Athey Creek, and then we ended up moving back to Indianapolis.
Oh.
Yeah, so she wanted to be closer to her family, and my family was there in Indy. So we just decided that Indy would be a good location, would be
Now,
closer
where
to
was her
both
family
families.
from?
Her family was from Michigan.
Okay, yeah,
So
Michigan.
even though she was born and raised in Connecticut, she ended up in Michigan.
Okay.
And yeah, so we were very close to her family by that point in time, or closer to her family than we were on the West Coast, and that was beneficial for all of us, for to be closer to family. There was a lot more family obligations that we decided that were we just hadn't seen in the past, and that became a little bit of an issue for us for a while. But besides that, it was nice being closer to family, seeing everybody again more often, and so that was a good thing. I don't recall that she was going to church at that point in time. Again, I was still in New Age theology, but she did get pregnant, and she
Hmm.
lost that child. So she had um, a miscarriage, and
That's hard, man.
that hit us both
Yeah.
pretty hard. But she was angry at God. She was a believer at this point in time, and now she got angry
Uh-huh.
with God, and that was interesting to see her reaction to all this. Um, for me, I was going into IT work. I was working at a bike shop, and I was studying to be like a network technician, an IT technician somehow. Didn't really matter what I was going to do. I was going to find something in computer technology by this time. But she was still working full time as a nurse, and I just so happened to get a call from this organization, Lockheed Martin, just out of the blue one day. I had sent my resume in just to an email address. I didn't even know who the email address belonged to. I was told, send my resume there. And I didn't hear anything back. Like there was no response to me sending a resume. It was a phone call that I ended up getting like 2 months later. Hey, we have a job opening. Can you fill it? Like, I have no idea who you are. What are you trying to sell me? What is going on here? So she told, this is Lockheed Martin. We're hiring for flight service, and everything. So I said, okay, I'm interested. Initially, I think it was going to take us to DC, and quickly I said no. I think Fort Worth was the other option. So we
Yeah.
decided to go to Texas. And that's what we did. I ended up getting this new job as a flight service specialist. So I was not flying, but I was in my degree. I was working within my degree, and I became a flight service specialist. And we were in Texas for about close to a year, and then I got transferred back out to Prescott. And again,
That's
God's
kind
got
of a
us.
weird full circle there.
Yeah, it was very strange. We had an opportunity to get back and to have
Yeah.
this facility in Prescott, of all places, a place that we knew, was kind of really fascinating to us. And so I said, the opportunity's here. Let's take it. Let's move back. We could have made it at either location, but that was a good choice for us. And we moved back. We bought a house, and we had some kids by then. Well, one of our kids was born in Arizona. The other one, our middle child, Ariel, she was born in Indiana while we were there.
Okay.
And by this time, my oldest daughter, things had kind of collapsed with that. Her mom ended up getting remarried, or married to some other guy, and they had a child together and whatnot. But we had a conversation where basically, and I didn't know my rights or law or anything at that point in time, and
Mhm.
I hadn't done any research on it, but wanted me to stay completely out of her life. And I was, taken back. I think she was probably about 5 or 6 when that happened. And so she didn't know who I was when we were reintroduced later on. But yeah, that was kind of a devastating moment for me, because I was like, this is my daughter. And again, I just didn't know what to do with that. But we marched on, and we had our own family now that we were starting to build, and we moved to Prescott. And so my son was born there in Prescott Valley, and then we ended up buying a small house, and of course you know where that is, because that was
Yeah.
right down the road. And yeah, so it was an interesting change of everything. Once again, going back out there, and now we have kids and everything else. And then it was in, I believe 2008, I was slapped with a lawsuit looking
Really?
for child support. And this had been like several years now. I think it was like either 2008, 2009, somewhere in that time period. Might have been '09, as a matter of fact. And I was, what am I going to do with this lawsuit? And for a good 6 to 10 months, maybe, I got in contact with my old girlfriend and everything, Jade's mom, and we had conversations. I tried to make things work between us, and I was like, look, we don't need the lawsuit. The state of Arizona would come down hard on me for really, a reason that the decision was there on her end to not have me involved in a relationship. And
But
what
they're
I
not going
found
to see
out,
it that way.
right. And what I found out later on was that her husband had left and they had a divorce. And so she needed help. And so it took some convincing and whatnot, but I said, we can work this out as adults. And we actually worked out a thing. She dropped the lawsuit and we worked it out on our own, where, like, what's the best interest for Jade? How are we going to deal with this? What are the things that we need to do? And how much is it? How much do you need a month to help cover costs, on these things? Visitation, we didn't have to go through the courts to try to figure all this stuff out. It would have been bad on both sides concerning a lot of these issues. So we worked it out amongst ourselves and it worked out great. She was willing to work with me and it was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. And to kind of get to know her again as well, besides not just my daughter, but her mom. And again, I had no animosity towards them. I was just excited to have Jade back in my life, and all this stuff was changing, which was great and all. I still hadn't come back to Christ. Jody had found a church though, about this time, maybe it was a couple years later. But the church, it was just a local startup. We started meeting people, getting friends, and getting involved with a lot of things. We decided to homeschool. So Jody had, by this time, had stopped working, and she was now like a full-time stay-at-home mom. I was able to afford to do that for her, and it's what she wanted to do. And so we made it work. And she was getting involved with all these homeschool communities and whatnot, because Ariel was getting old enough. And so we started meeting a lot of different people in the homeschool community and doing a lot of things within that. Kind of led Jody back to finding a church and getting involved with a Christian ideology. And I don't think she was as angry with God at this point, from the miscarriage. So it was good for her. And then she went on, I think, a women's retreat at some point, and that's when things like just completely, absolutely changed with her. And I don't remember the year that was. It may have been 2010, 2011, somewhere in there, when all that happened. And she had really changed her thoughts on that. Meanwhile, I'm still in kind of new age theology at this point in time, still hearing things happen in our house that I just wasn't excited about. Fire alarms are just one of the things that I cannot stand, because that's the one thing the demonic activity kept doing, was pushing the fire alarm at 2 a.m. every morning. It didn't seem to bother anybody else, but I would wake up to those, and it was annoying. And then little things that would happen in rooms next to me, and I'd tell it to be quiet. And it would. But with one of us in the house being, in a relationship with Christ now, had changed the dynamics of what was happening in the house without me even realizing it. But I was getting very curious. And about that time, I started paying attention to, I think it was Mark Driscoll, if you're familiar with him.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Mars Hill at that point in time.
Yep.
I had started watching a few videos. I think it might have been YouTube. I'm not sure exactly what platform it was on. But I started getting curious. And I was like, what? I don't understand all this. And the way he approached things was interesting. And it just kind of, it was subtle at first. And I would watch it on these random occasions and just like, this is fascinating in the way he's bringing light to it. And And Jody, in the meantime, was praying with her friends and all for something to happen, a conversion to happen within me. I did not know that until later on, but I had like an army of people praying for me, which was, looking back, was totally amazing. Totally amazing. Yeah, it was mind blowing. But yeah, so I'm looking at Driscoll, and I think it was somebody had come up to me from one of our friend groups, and mentioned a book, The Case for Christ, as a matter of fact.
Oh yeah.
Lee Strobel. And
Strobel, great book.
yeah, yeah. And I was like, okay, I'm somewhat interested in this. And so I read through it, and there was a lot of good logical arguments. And I was like, okay, this might be true. I'm struggling to still to see it and understand it. As a matter of fact, it was so bad that I couldn't even say the name Jesus. Jesus was a very hard thing to say. I couldn't say it. I used everything else except his name at the time.
Even though you believe that he was a prophet, you
Even
still
though I
had a hard
believed he
time
was,
saying.
yeah. Now I could say his name like in passing, like coding over it very quickly. In that idea of, he's just a prophet, but it was just a very quick thing. I couldn't say his name. Like there was something that was holding me back from saying his name. It was very, very interesting when I look back on it. Like there's no way his name was not going to come out of my mouth. But that kind of led me down when I started looking at Strobel's book. It kind of led me down this other path. Well, what are the true names of all these people? And that became an important thing to me. Like, what was Jesus' real name in Hebrew or Aramaic back then? Yeshua, And I was like, well, that's interesting. And okay, so what are all the other names? And I started getting into this naming convention, so much so that I ended up buying a couple books on just names, biblical names, and trying to research a lot of that and what they mean, because names had a meaning to them back then. And so I was, this is fascinating. And how did it get changed or translated into the current form of Jesus that we know? And so I started doing a little bit of digging, and I'm getting closer to God without realizing it, and getting closer to this understanding.
Using that curiosity.
Yeah, right. Meanwhile, I got involved with the kids stuff. We were doing soccer all the time. We were doing a lot of different things outside of just the school. They were involved in theater. And at the time, that was kind of interesting. I'd always wanted to be an actor. I thought it would be cool to be an actor. Wow, you're in front of these cameras and whatnot. I never took acting classes. I never did anything like that. But I always had a fascination with it. And if I would have known the right people, I would have loved to gone to Hollywood. Now, looking back at that point in time, I would have. Anymore, Hollywood has, there's a lot of things that go on there. I still think it would be fun to be in front of a camera and be an actor. I love it. That was actually something that I ended up getting into without even realizing it. Because when the kids were in some of the plays that they were in, there was a chance for me to fill a role that, like, there was an adult role that needed to be played. I think it was Oliver was the first one. Actually, there was something else prior to that, and they saw the little kids theater. It was a little bit bigger than kids theater too, but the theater that we were at that point, they had seen what I could do. So when they decided to put Oliver on as a program, they needed somebody else and another adult. There's a few adults that are in that show, So they ended up putting me in the role of Fagin. It was kind of a quirky character in that show, and so I had to portray this character. It was my first time like really going out and stepping out on a limb, and it was so much fun. And I had fun being. I had a chance to be with the kids. Well, mainly Aaron. I think Aaron, he was in one of the plays later on. He was too young at that point for the other play, so it was just Ariel and I. Somebody had to take her to to the rehearsals, and I was taking her, and since I was taking her, I got the role, and then it was for both of us, and it was fun having her there too as well, and we were kind of
bringing you guys both together and getting that bonding time.
Right, and just having a lot of fun with it, and I enjoyed that character so much, which led to doing other plays in the future, and eventually I ended up. They did Sound of Music, and I was Captain Von Trapp in that one, and that was an interesting one too. But I had done so. I had gone through a couple of these. I actually had a chance to do one with Aaron. That was the Music Man. I was. They actually, I think, were considering me as the primary role, but I ended up getting a different role, and I had so much fun with it. It was the. I can't think of what role it was. It was the town mayor, I think it was, and just a funny character, and bringing him to life was entertaining. But beyond the point, it was fun doing those things with my kids, and I know that they had a little bit more apprehension than I did. I thrived on it. That was like, yeah, if I could find
coming
a way
from
to do
an
this,
introvert to
I know,
this
right?
extrovert who is now thriving in this theater scene. That's awesome.
It was a blast. However, I did see that there was some potential downfalls when I was working in the character of Captain Von Trapp. Family life was kind of deteriorating for us. Not a lot of people knew it, but I was struggling. I was struggling with my job, and I just was not. I wasn't there for them at home as I should have been, and I was getting to that depressed stage again. Where it was just very, very difficult for Jody, and the kids. It was a difficult time for them. There's not very many things I wish I could kind of take back. These are the things that I wish I could take back. Is just not being the person that I was at that point in time, but being the father that I should have been. But it's all worked out. Everything's worked out. God is his hand is in it all, even through these kinds of things. But I was going down the wrong path again in my life, making bad decisions and not walking the road, but I was still very interested in this Christianity thing. And then I had this hold my beer moment at work one day, which was really entertaining to some. To me, not so much at the time. Now I look back, I can laugh at it. But yeah, somebody had said, "Oh yeah, you should do." I was working out in the gym, just on a break or something of that nature, and basically somebody had said, well, "Can you do like a handstand push-up?" Or I was like, "I can do this. Oh, I got this. This is easy. No problem. Hold my beer." Yeah, so there I was, upside down, and I was trying to do a couple push-ups, and next thing you know, I got off center. My feet were against the wall because I couldn't just keep, myself up fully. Yeah, I hadn't done a handstand in years, but I was like, I can do this, and I had pushed out one or two of them, and then I felt I was going off to one side, and that shoulder decided to give, and I broke my shoulder. Yep. Imagine the ball and socket. It's kind of like a tee and a golf ball, and that tee a third of it had broken off the top. Yeah. So I went to the hospital. They placed my arm back in place. They put the shoulder back in. They took x-rays and they didn't see the break on the x-rays.
Ooh.
That came later after a CT scan. Meanwhile, I still had to perform. I was the main character in The Sound of Music. And here I am with a broken shoulder. And I have to do the dance moves where, like,
Oh, come on. You're having to dance with this?
I'm having to dance. So and I'm having to twirl the girls around. And as I'm doing so, I've faced away from the audience because I'm in sheer pain. And then once I turn around, after I spin them, I'm fine. The audience never knew. But I was in pain for the entire duration of that. But that was a turning moment. That was God knocking on me. Kind of, he basically, I like to say, if you know Saul's story, prior to becoming Paul, he has a moment in time where he's on his way to Damascus. Right. And on his way to Damascus, Jesus intervenes and blinds him, physically blinds him. And I would say there's a handful of people. Not everybody has to go through a physical impairment of some sort to come to Christ. Some of us do. Like, I guess I chose that path as well.
So, like, I need Saul's path.
Here we are. I like the way Saul did this. Like he was persecuting all the Christians. He was persecuting everybody. And then he has a physical ailment that comes over him where he's blinded. That's exactly what happens to me. Not blinded, but
the shoulder.
Right. I'm physically injured now. And I'm going through all this stuff and I'm like, oh my gosh. And it was probably about a week later where I ended up going to the VA hospital and got a CT scan, and they found the break. Mind you that the shows are like that weekend. So I went down, I did some quick research, and I found a doctor in Scottsdale. This is what he does. He does shoulders, and he does them for sports, people in sports. We're talking all the hockey teams on the West Coast or in the Southwest, California, Arizona, Utah, you name it. He does sports injuries for all these different players and whatnot. And I think he does knees as well, potentially, but shoulders were a big thing. And I found him, and they took my insurance, and I went down there and talked to him, I think that weekend, that Friday or something like that. And he looked at it. He says, can you be here on Monday? And I think I had done the plays by this point in time. And I said, yes, I will be here on Monday. And so we scheduled surgery. And he says that was one of the worst shoulders that he's ever seen. Usually, I guess they pop out of socket, maybe they get loose or whatnot, but he had to pull. He couldn't put a screw in it because it would have broken or split the bone. He found the fragment of bone, brought it back up, and he sutured bone to bone. And he says, now you can't move your shoulder, but you need to move your shoulder. And I was like, how am I supposed to do this?
What does that mean?
What are we doing here? And my wife took me down to the facility that did it. They did it there. It wasn't a hospital. It was like one of these outpatient places. And they kicked me out. Like after they were done, I was vomiting, from the anesthesia and everything. And here I am. That we had to end up getting a hotel room down in Scottsdale, and we planned this ahead of time. But we got back to the hotel room. I remember looking up at the hotel. I think we're on the second floor. I don't know how we're going to get up there. I can't even get out of the car. I'm so out of it, but managed to get up there. And on the way back, the following day, I was, they had me on some kind of medication. I was just in la la land. I was happy, but in pain. I could still feel the pain. And so the following weeks and whatnot and months are, getting into physical therapy and doing it very slowly, going through the process and everything. But I now was like, okay, God, where are you in this? And what just happened? And now I'm actively, like, not just kind of passively looking and reading these things. Now I'm actively looking for you. And that was my turning point back to Christ. Was, I needed to be broken for these things to happen. And yeah, he was in this, and I started doing a lot more research then, getting into more books. Lee Strobel, he did a lot of research through various people and whatnot, and I started looking up some of those people. Gary Habermas was one of them. I have a few books from him. Some of the other ones. Josh and Sean McDowell, they go into more of the evidence-based stuff that's related to Christ, and it's great because that's what I needed. I needed like scientific proof that this was actually things that happened, and these books were like guides straight to that. I needed to see all these things specifically. William Lane Craig was another one that I had read. There's been several of those books that were kind of imperative to know what I was looking at, and to realize that these things are true, not just fabrication. Because I knew a lot of the history of the various religions that I've been in. Or not have been in, but have seen, have looked up, and none of them have the evidence that Christianity has. And so I was like, okay, this is real. There's factual information behind this, and that's where I started getting to the point where, okay, Christ is now doing something in me. What do I need to do? I'm working on a shift schedule, so Sundays are kind of out for me. Although I had been to several different churches to see if there was anything that would fit. The church that my wife was going to at the time was called Lumen Deo. It's no longer there, but the pastor from there, he's got a church. It's Union Church in Prescott. Now, but he was kind of there to help walk me through some of the initial steps. And one of the first books, he's like, you need to read Ephesians. And I was kind of like, you want me to read a book in the Bible? I don't. It seems kind of foreign to me, but okay, because I hadn't read the Bible. I was just taking other people's ideas and what they had to say on the Bible, but I hadn't read it myself. And so I read Ephesians, and I was like, there's a lot of stuff in here that I don't understand, but I want to try to understand it and try to get to know it a little bit better, and really doing all the questioning and everything. And so I was going through his church. He ended up rebaptizing me again in Prescott, and all the people that had been praying for me, or not all of them, but a large portion of them, came out to see the baptism and really see my conversion. And that wasn't the end of the story, though, because a lot of people they'll convert, but it's and you're kind of on fire at first for Jesus,
Yeah.
but then there's this doldrums that you kind of get into a little bit, a lukewarm Christianity. And as a matter of fact, I ended up getting this book. I think it was called Comfortable Christianity. It kind of against, being comfortable. You got to be uncomfortable. You got to get out there and everything. I don't remember the author's name right offhand, but it was a very good book. But it helped out to start to see a lot of different things as well. It started my growth at that point in time. And in my regular life, Lockheed Martin had changed hands to Leidos for the flight service contract that had been given. And they gave us like a year and a half notice. And they said, yeah, we're going to be shutting down this facility. So if you're interested in going back to Texas, you can do that. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I ended up calling a whole bunch of friends and kind of looking on a nationwide search, because there wasn't much in Prescott at the time as far as industry was concerned, especially with what my skill set was. Very narrow skill set that I have. And sure, I could have gone into other things. Jody was trying to push me into doing some other things as well. But I figured I needed to continue. Again, this was needs that were on me to help the family, to, continue to be the breadwinner and really push to keep the family at a level that I thought we needed to be at. And, come to find out later on, the comfort that we have is it's all made up. I mean, we don't need this kind of comfort, but
and honestly, it's not dictated by you. It's dictated by God.
That's true.
That's the thing. That's always a hard thing for a guy and for a man,
Yes.
is to say, I'm not in control.
Yeah.
What I need to do is be in control of how I develop my relationship with the God who is in control. So
Right.
I can control myself and make those decisions on whether or not I want to be in a relationship with him.
Yes.
But I'm not in control of any of my circumstances.
No, not at all. Yeah, clearly that's not the case. Yeah, it ended up. I ended up contacting one of my friends that was working here in St. Louis, and we ended up moving here. And for the first 2 years, it was very difficult for the kids and my wife, even for me, although I kind of hit it a little bit more. But the wife and kids, they had some trouble with all this. My oldest daughter was in Tucson. She was older anyways, and she still got a chance to come out and visit, anytime that she can and whatnot. But it was a challenge moving here to St. Louis. The first church we ended up going to, one of the sermons right before COVID happened was an interesting one. We were just moving into our house that we're currently in, and it was all about neighbors. Who are your neighbors? And I went out, and it was a new neighborhood and everything. I got to know like all my neighbors around me and who they were, where they worked, what they did, and that was interesting. And yeah, so
use this word "interesting." You're like, wow.
it was very okay. What am I supposed to do with this, and everything? But it was good. That church, we were there for a little while. I saw a miracle happen in that church.
Oh, wow.
I was kind of a part witness. When we got there and we started going, the pastor's son had a physical ailment that had happened, and he was bedridden, and like it was clearly obvious that there were things going on, that he wasn't able to get out of bed, and there were some bad things that were happening. And then like one day, he just got up, and that was it. You know, he was healed. He was completely healed. And through the prayers and everything, what I heard and what had happened was he was prayed over by, and I don't remember the band's name, but there was a member of one of the bands that had called them and prayed over him. And the first time he prayed, it didn't work, so they prayed again. And the following day, he was up and walking. There was nothing there. Like, they went back for X-rays on the issues that he was having, and it was all gone. And that was amazing. To the point where when we had just moved here, that Thanksgiving, my son became diabetic. He's type 1, and he was in the hospital over Thanksgiving, and on the way to the hospital one of the days, I called the pastor and I was like, I need you guys to pray. What I realized looking back on it was I was relying on them and their prayers, and I wasn't relying on Jesus. I was desperate for a healing like I witnessed, his son, and that didn't happen. And but I was looking at the wrong thing. I was looking at them to try to help, and it was Jesus that I should have been looking at. And not necessarily just for me, but the whole family needed to look at Jesus, and we all need to look at him. And it's like when Simon gets out of the boat. Is it Simon? Got out of the boat and was walking on water.
Yeah, that's Peter.
Yeah.
Yep.
Peter. Yeah.
That's Simon.
So Peter.
Yeah.
Right, Simon Peter. He gets out of the boat, and he's got his eyes focused on Jesus for a moment when he gets out. But then he takes his eyes off, and he starts sinking. And that was me. I was looking in the wrong places. I wasn't looking at Jesus. Jesus has a reason. There's a reason God put us in this position, put Aaron in this position. And that was a difficult time to go through. And then it wasn't long after that, COVID happened. We didn't have a church to go to. No one did, really. And we started watching our former church online from here. We were watching the church in Prescott, and he was just doing video stuff. I mean, back then it was kind of strange. Everybody was just trying to get along and do what you could. And after that, we found there were some other things that happened. We found this church called Heartland, and that's where we're going now currently. But it wasn't just, it happened kind of, we say it, God has mysterious ways of working in our lives. Yes. And what had happened was, I think Aaron was in a play here through his homeschool group here. He was in a play, and I went to see the play. While we were waiting prior to the start of it, I met these people next to me. This guy next to me, he had this great beard, and I was, and I think I had a smaller one at that point in time. And I looked over at him. I said, "Hey, man, that's a nice beard. That's great beard. I wish I could grow one like that." So we got to talking. I found out that he's from Mississippi, and he mentioned the name of the church. But again, as I met him, I promptly forgot his name. And after church,
not your strong suit there.
Yeah, right, exactly. After the show, I talked to Jody, and I was like, "Hey, I met these people. I don't remember their names, but they mentioned some church, and I knew the church name, and I said it's Heartland. And they're going there, and they mentioned a couple things, and Jody was like, "Well, that's interesting, because the day before she had met some people, and she knew their names, but didn't remember the church." So between the two of us, we got all the information that we needed.
Isn't it funny how God works in our weaknesses, and then he's able to
Yes.
put everything together to magnify himself and to
Yep.
work it out for us?
Yeah. It was kind of funny. We didn't end up going to the church. What ended up happening was Ariel was starting to date around. She was 16. She was starting to date. We allowed her to date, and the choices that she was making at the time, we didn't care for very much. I think
a
that's
lot
just
at 16.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just I think it's a father thing too. We want to be protective of our kids, and
Absolutely.
in this case, it was my daughter that was dating, and we got to meet some of the guys, and just didn't really care about them too much. So, yeah. With that being said, it was kind of funny. She she was dating these guys that we didn't really approve of. Jody and I remembered that we had talked amongst ourselves about this church, and again, from the time of the play to when we discussed this again, it had been maybe a month or two, maybe even 3 months, and we decided, you know, she was thinking it while I said it. We should look at Heartland. We should go. We should think about it. And she was like, I was just thinking that, and I was like, that's amazing. Let's go check it out. So we ended up going to that church, and yeah, we're still at that church. Ever since then, there's been a lot that's taken place. Like the foundations that I had grown up on were crumbling away to rebuild a whole new foundation. Even though I was in Christ, I was now being built by Jesus himself. Like it was amazing. All the transformation that's come from this church. It's been amazing, and I've gotten into classes where I'm doing like some leadership stuff there. I'm involved with the church, but I've also started a men's group. I have a men's group that comes over to my house every Monday. We do a Bible study with a close friend of mine, and we've been doing it for years now at my house. And we have guys that come in, and a couple of them were newer to the faith, and probably questioning, like we have. I have a tendency to, even if I believe certain things, I'll bring it up like the antithesis of these ideas, just to spark conversation. And so I like to throw those out, those little nuggets, and kind of see where they land, and make controversy while we're doing it. But it allows us to kind of dive deeper into these things. And I ended up getting into a prison ministry for a little while for, doing the Monday night men's group at my place. We also do a small group, gospel community is what they call it, through our church. And that's on Wednesdays. I think we're changing that to a Fridays here shortly, or Saturday. I'm not sure. I think it's Friday. So there's a lot of things that have been going on. All the meanwhile, I've been studying all sorts of things, kind of getting into apologetics to a certain level. I talk to friends, and even when somebody comes in, like I have a really good friend here that asked me at some point, about some stuff, and I was like, he was asking the same kind of questions I had, and I had answers to him, and like the evidence here is so great. And then I started watching other people on YouTube, Wes Huff being one of them, and I was like, man, this guy, he's working on his doctorates. He may even have his doctorates by now. I'm not sure, but the way he explains what I've already read in so many different books is exactly how I need to hear it. And so there's a lot of people that have been influential, even recently in my life. So it's been a tremendous change, and now, it's not even anywhere close to being over, because our house is under contract right now, just out of the blue. We didn't even put it on the market, and we're selling it. And I think we're going to end up in the next year or so, wind up back in Arizona again. We'll see.
Man, that's incredible. It's amazing how God just keeps bringing that around, just full
Yeah.
circle, just keep coming back around, and in different stages of your life,
Yeah.
especially now. How would you put it that where you are today with Christ, like, do you have a relationship with him?
Oh, I would say it's interesting because I couldn't put it into words for myself until recently, until I heard somebody else say it. But I would say that I have a relationship with Christ. I have a relationship with Jesus, the God of creation. And it's not a religious thing. It's the way, you know. I get into conversations with other people in like the Catholic faith and stuff, and I'm not knocking any of them. We're all brothers in Christ, sisters in Christ, you know. And I will say that, you know, there's some stuff in the weeds that we can kind of get entangled in and whatnot. Some of the religiosity that's involved with some of those things, I still struggle with, and I don't want to be a part of a religion. I want to be a part of Jesus, and
Man.
it's two totally different things. I mean, you can look at religion and see what it's doing across the globe, and then you can look at who's following the way, you know, Jesus. What's going on there? You can see the difference between it.
Yeah, we don't have a lot of time left, but I do want to say that it's amazing how God took you from point A, being adopted,
Mm-hmm.
going through
Yeah.
this whole roller coaster, knowing that there is a God, but not knowing who that God is, and even having an aversion to saying Jesus,
Yes.
and going,
Yes.
and then moving through life, seeing God's hand through every part of your life, bringing you to this place that you have a family, you have a church and a ministry, but more importantly, you know Jesus and he's your friend. It's someone that you trust.
Very much so.
And it
My
doesn't
life.
matter the trials. The trials is just what got you there. It's like you were saying, Peter on the water. What
Yep.
distracted Peter was the storm. That's life.
Mhm.
It is full
Yep.
of storms. It's where we lose our focus off of Jesus and we start to sink. We start to go down. But he is right there when we call his name. He pulls us right out of the water, and then there we are, hand in hand, in his arms, ready to make it through. He puts us back in the boat for safety.
Yes.
He takes care of us. And it's not like the trials are going to be over, just because we found Jesus. It's
Right.
just that it's just now we're more assured because we trust in him, that we know that he's going to pull us out of the water when we start to drown, that it's going to be okay, no matter what it is.
Exactly. Yes.
I think your story is inspiring. So, like, what is your final thought? Like, what would you like to share with people that are listening to this?
If you don't know Jesus, try to find somebody who does. Look to him for everything. Study as much as you can, if that's possible. If you have questions, there are a plethora of people who know or can point you to somebody who knows, a pastor or somebody who is just a believer. Get to know Jesus. Let him into your heart. Let him work through you. And the wonders and the amazement of things that come out of that are just unbelievable. When you've been through a lot of the crazy things in life and you can trust in him, do so. Just love Jesus as much as you can.
Amen. I love that. That's beautiful, brother. And I bet you don't want to hear those voices anymore, or those things that coming around.
No, actually, yeah, there is another part to that, but we could save that for another time.
Sounds good, brother. Well, God bless you. Thank you so much, Jason, for being on here. I truly appreciate it. I want to end with a prayer, if that's okay with you.
For sure, yes.
Our beloved Jesus, we thank you so much for this beautiful testimony that you have given Jason, that he was able to share with everybody here. We ask, Lord, that anybody that is struggling or trying to find who you are, or even apprehensive of saying your name or seeking a relationship with you, that you will show them the way, that you will show them your love, that you will show them how you have always been in their life, that every part of their life has had you side by side with them, that you are there to be their best friend, that you are there to guide them, to grow them, and to give them all the love that they were meant to receive by your hand. We praise you, Jesus, for doing amazing things, and we thank you for the trials and the suffering that we have in our life as it brings us closer to you. We ask, Lord, that you will heal all those that need healing, that you will help broken relationships, and yet those that are going through financial troubles, you will help them too. Because there is only one name for our salvation, and that is Jesus Christ. And we thank you, Jesus, and we praise your name forever and ever. Amen.
Amen.
All right. I want to thank everybody. This is By Fire and Faith, and this is John Roy with Dawson Knives, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.